Hello, welcome to my channel. I really hate filming long lines like this. I don't know where to look. Sorry. I'll just look away. And then my friend said, "Oh, I can totally tell you're autistic by your eye contact while you're filming." And it really doesn't have to do with that. I feel like I have to look over here, but I don't know. Then when I'm looking over, I guess I look straight. Maybe I can't look straight. Oh my God. Oh, Lord. Hi. Welcome to my channel. My name is Donna. I am, when I figure it out, starting another channel called Affirming Neuro. Well, I'm not really sure on the name yet. I think it was Affirming Neurodiversity or Affirming Neurodivergent. I think it's Affirming Neurodivergent. I think that's what I decided. It could work either way. But so I'm a passionate person. Come to find out that's sort of a trait of the autism. Um, there was a funny meme that said something like, it showed someone crying and saying, "Oh, why did I get the sense of justice and overwhelming empathy autism instead of the really good at science and math autism?" That was so relatable. But so like this passionate, like there's this drive inside of me, that's the brain is just amazing. God created us like wonderfully. Like a human being is just amazing. um they said if they lined up our DNA, I think that's what I heard, that it would reach to Pluto and back, in one human being. um we're made really amazing. So it's amazing that like different brain structures create different behaviors. Kind of reminds me of the movie with Tinkerbell, how she was just a tinker, that's how she was made, and she wanted to be something else. I don't know, that could get deep into and that's part of it too, that I'm very deep. I have a sensory processing disorder. So my brain doesn't shut off. It just goes and goes and goes. It just takes in everything. And the funny thing is that, I can look stupid because I'm I'm overwhelmed with stimuli, and it's really hard to filter. It's really hard to filter. I think a friend got mad at me recently when I said, because I'm trying to open a cafe, and I got so many opinions coming at me, and people say, "Oh, just don't listen," or whatever. My brain doesn't do that. It listens to everything and everyone. Please don't tell me any more opinions. Like, I'm already struggling with all my own ideas. I thought I could say a boundary to someone, and maybe I came off rude. But if you could understand, that's why I want to start this page or this YouTube channel, and I don't know, a group or something, a revolution. I want to start, really like advocating for people. I made a post about my diagnosis, and it was interesting to see the differences between just posting it publicly on my page and the comments. And if anyone watches that's on my Facebook and made a comment like this, please understand I'm not trying to be mean. I appreciate it. I had a lot of people say, because I made a long post and I put a recent picture of myself, because when there's a photo in a post, it gets seen more. And it was about me, so I used a most recent picture of me. And I've cut off my hair. A lot of people said, "Oh, I love your hair." And I really don't think anyone, except for one person, made a comment about the actual post, which was like a really long, thoughtful post about building a bridge between neurodivergent and neurotypical people that are born with processing disorders and people that aren't. And we're both human. And, it's just a different way that the brain and the nervous system processes. The psychiatrist told me there's over 1,000 gene variations that cause autism. And so, like, look at how vast that is, even. So, but the interesting thing was that, I'm not ripping on anyone that gave a comment that said they love my hair. I think that's sweet. I feel good about that. That's nice. But the interesting thing was I also posted the exact same message on a neurodivergent site, and the responses were beautiful. They were thoughtful. They had read what I wrote. And I guess we could say maybe it's something they're more interested in, because they're neurodivergent. But again, that's where I want to build that bridge, because we're leaving a whole clump of humanity out of the social tribe because of who we are, And so I just want to explain again a little bit about what autism is. And it is on a spectrum because, again, there's over 1,000 gene variations, from verbal, obviously I'm verbal, to people that are completely nonverbal, So, but what it is, it's, and you can have a sensory processing disorder without autism. I haven't really dug deep into that yet, but I have been diagnosed with autism. And I know about sensory processing because, hello, I've lived in my vessel my whole life. I'm 56, so I know what that feels like, And I never knew before because it's kind of like, you're living through your own lens, your own brain, your own nervous system. And I always just thought people are people, like I always thought everyone was processing and feeling the same way I did. I didn't know people didn't feel the depths that I do, like because with the sensory processing disorder, like I'm not filtering out stimuli. So I'm like, right now I hear my dog snoring, and I know other people can too, but like things come at me all at the same volume and all at the same, all at the same magnitude. And, my daughter, she's even more of the heightened sensitivity than me. This kid can smell. Like we used to have this lotion that was known to be completely scentless, but anytime I used it, she knew I had it on. She can smell like, but you can see how that can be debilitating too, because like yesterday we were working out and she's like, oh, this area smells like someone threw up baby formula. And you know what? I bet someone had at some point and she could smell that residue, like, so you can see how that could overwhelm someone. So then what happens, because we have such a heightened nervous system that absorbs everything around us, all of our senses, some more than others, some people more than others, I'm a very auditory, and I'm noticing the shadow now, a very auditory person. My daughter, like, she's like a vampire. Light is very overwhelming to her. She's got beautiful, like white skin too. She's like, she doesn't do good with light. And just people are different, and like honoring and respecting that. And I wish I could get more people interested that weren't neurodivergent, so that like, we're a minority, just like, African American people have struggled. And, whenever someone's a minority, we can like get mistreated, and, being a minority in a society is not an easy thing, being expected to, look, behave, act in, the way that the majority does. And, especially like, I'm not going to deny it's hard when you like, you know, you're the minority with a different skin color, like I understand that to a smaller degree. When I was younger, like it was, real white skin, blonde hair, blue eyes. Otherwise, you were subpar, thankfully we're kind of getting over that. And hopefully we'll get there with neurodivergent people too. So what happens is that, and I wish more people cared, really. I hope people care. I hope people share this, and I hope people care. But since we get so overwhelmed by the stimuli, we tend to stim, which means it's an unconscious thing. I do it with my hands. I use my hands a lot. And I see people watching my hands, and then I have to hold them down because I get insecure then, because I've obviously been picked on for, moving my hands too much. So, but what that happens, why we unconsciously do it, is to regulate ourselves, to regulate that heightened, beautiful, by the way, beautiful nervous system that is taking in the environment at an amazing rate, like amazing. That's why a lot of people on the spectrum, end up becoming inventors in that, because we take in so much stimuli that we can see the connection between things that neurotypicals may have a harder time seeing. So, and I'm not trying to be mean about that. I mean, neurotypical people, their brains automatically filter things. Like, guess what? Me or a neurotypical person, neither of us said, hey, I want to be born neurodivergent, or I want to be born neurotypical. Neurotypical brain automatically, without any thought, filters stimuli. Neurodivergent brain, without choosing, does not. It takes in all the stimuli. So then we get picked on for doing things like stimming. I've done it at work, and I have my boss go, what are you doing? And like shaming me. And, okay, so it looks weird. I fidget my hands a lot. But if we could like be a little more compassionate, and it sounded like I was saying shit there, maybe unconsciously slipping out. If we could be more compassionate, and if we see someone doing something different, just maybe letting them, like, does me kind of flapping my hands really hurt you? It looks weird, maybe. But what it's doing for me is making it so I can process the stimuli and be part of the community. Because that's where a big problem happens, is that we end up feeling a shit ton of shame and like we don't belong. And so we either have to mask, which takes a ton of energy to not stim and just let your body get completely overwhelmed until what my psychiatrist said, until what my body is doing right now is it's completely ignoring my brain. And it's dangerous, because I've been shamed for stimming behaviors or just overwhelm, even not being able to socialize like a neurotypical person can, or, not, my social battery gets drained a lot quicker. And then, you're a party pooper, or you're this or you're that, I heard when I was younger. And, because I didn't have the same social battery. And then, again, unconsciously, the brain and the body make an agreement to create an adaptation, and they decide to stop communicating. So she said, that they still have functions, my body does things and my brain does things, but there's that disconnect there, because you know, also the overwhelm, and no way to process the overwhelm, 56 years without being accommodated for, you know, the overwhelm and shamed for, being different. And so then they decide to stop communicating with each other. So the really sad and devastating thing, she was telling me, I'll tell you why it can be so dangerous. She said it's very dangerous. And so there's two reasons why it's very devastating. One is because they're not communicating, the brain and the body, you stop experiencing joy. And that's why a lot of autistic people are depressed and anxious. So we're not living fully because we're up in our heads and we're ignoring our bodies unconsciously because of the overwhelm and everything I was just talking about. And then what happens is what's called anhedonia. And I've had it for a while. It friggin' sucks. And I can't experience joy. And when you can't experience joy, it's very hard to be motivated. It's very hard to get things done. Like we're like a whole ecosystem, a head and a body. And when we do things and we feel joy, we get motivated to do more. These are all unconscious things people do without thinking about it. It's not, oh, get out there and do it, oh, get out there and do it. But you feel nothing, it sucks. I can't even begin to, it's worse than depression. It's just nothing. It's nothing. It's hard, and it's not something I'm choosing. Please don't think I'm choosing it. Again, it's an unconscious adaptation that the brain and the body go into agreement like, okay, you are too overwhelmed. So we're going to stop communicating because we can't process all this overwhelm. And also, society shames you for doing things that help you process the overwhelm, like stimming or, not hanging out with people on hours on end because we can't do it. And just allowing us to be. I love to be alone. I do. I love people too. I love both, but I need a balance, And then they just unconsciously do it. So that's one thing that's horrible about it. The other thing that is a lot more devastating, if that's not devastating enough, because it sucks to not be able to experience joy, it's awful, is what the psychiatrist told me. And I said, yeah, I've done it already. Oh, wow, I just saw for a second where to look. All right, so there, that felt a little joyous. I may be coming out of the anhedonia a little bit because I'm trying to let myself be me, unmasked. So I think I'm starting to build the connection back, My dog's staring at me. Hi, baby. Hi. Okay, back to sleep. So the other really scary thing is, she said, well, you know how like some people get, what's it called? Like a rupture. I can't think of it. Oh, no. Well, I forgot. I'll just give my real life example. She said that the problem is if you have something going on with your body and your brain and your body are not communicating, you'll ignore it, So I could have a medical thing happening inside my body and not realize it, So she said, you have to be very careful, She said, please be very careful. Like, just try to take some time and pay attention to anything that your body might be feeling. And, you'll probably feel it at a lower level. Like, and I definitely have had this where something what should be extremely painful, yet I'm barely feeling it. And so she said, like, ask others to look after you and advocate. So years and years ago, I lost a lot of blood, female stuff. Sorry, personal, but I mean a lot. But I did nothing about it because of that disconnect, you know. Sorry for the thumb thing there. So I was couldn't get out of bed, but it just didn't register, you know, and I could hear my heart going whoosh, 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 whoosh. And I had to get out of bed one day because I had to take my daughter to school. She had missed the bus, and so I looked in the mirror and I was gray and my gums were gray and I looked like a vampire. And ironically, I was laying in bed watching the Vampire Diaries. And I work from home, so I just would lay with my computer and work on my computer and not move. And I don't know what I thought, really, honestly. I guess I just thought I was tired, you know. And and so yeah, I took myself to the doctor that day, and the second she saw me, she's like, "Holy crap, you are totally anemic." She said, "Go down right now and get lab work, and I'll call you later or tomorrow." And my kids called me. They said the hospital kept calling the house, and they told me to get back in there. I had the hemoglobin levels, they start transfusing at 12, and I was at a 6. So yeah, the psychiatrist said appendicitis, that's it. Said yes, that's the danger. She said, like, where some people like may feel appendicitis and then if you don't do anything about it, it can rupture. Like she said, autistic people are at a lot higher risk of just ignoring it, because we've disassociated from our bodies. So, all right, sorry for the long story, but I really affirming neurodiversity. And I also kind of I want to build the bridge for understanding for neurotypicals. I don't know why I want that bridge, that understanding and that compassion, so that autistic people and neurodivergent people don't have to keep suffering, But I also really want this for you people, for my tribe, for the neurodivergent people, because we have lived through so much pain, so much rejection, so much invalidation. We really deserve to be affirmed. And I'm here to do that. I affirm you. I understand you. I know you're not asking to be overwhelmed by stimuli. You're allowed to stim. You're allowed to take breaks. You're allowed to give yourself, accommodate for yourself. You're allowed to say no. You're allowed to not want to talk to people that call you weird for not wanting to do what they want to do, even if it's socially acceptable. And anyways, I'm just here for you. So yeah, let's get this going here. Let's build that bridge and let's affirm each other. All right, peace out.